Good morning. More than 13 million households in the U.S. are food insecure. That's according to the Department of Agriculture. President Biden laid out his multi-billion-dollar plan to end hunger over the next 8 years, calling for a whole of government and whole of society approach. One expert says food insecurity in the United States has gotten worse since the COVID-19 pandemic. Skylar Henry has more from the White House.
At the first White House conference on hunger in more than 50 years, President Biden announced an $8 billion investment aimed at ending food insecurity by 2030.
In America, no child should go to bed hungry.
The president says the funding comes from more than 100 private businesses and organizations, with the added goals of promoting better nutrition and exercise.
Physical activity is part of living a healthy lifestyle and avoiding diet-related diseases.
President Biden said meeting his goal requires bipartisanship, and he called on Congress to expand last year's child tax credit permanently.
Overwhelmingly, working families use the child tax credit to buy food and other basic needs for their families, and it helped cut child poverty by nearly 50% in the United States.
Food insecurity actually went up this summer compared to spring 2021. So that means we're doing worse now than in the middle of COVID-19.
Mona Shah of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, a philanthropic organization focused on health, says inflation is a main driver of that increase.
High food price inflation is really getting in the way for families to access food. Also, other elevated costs such as transportation and rent, which most likely eroded food budgets in the past year.
The president has also proposed changes to federal food programs like SNAP and expanding access to free meals in schools, but those would require action from Congress. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
The latest data from the Department of Agriculture also shows food insecurity increased from 2020 to 2021 in households with no children, especially for women living alone, as well as for elderly people who live alone. The month of September is when doctors try to bring awareness to head lice prevention. As children go back to school, this is the time of year when cases increase. Michael George has more on that.
They're a nuisance and can lead to a lot of stress for both kids and their parents. Head lice. Now, for the first time in years, the American Academy of Pediatrics is updating its guidance on controlling and treating head lice. The group says the nits are not a health hazard or a sign of poor hygiene, but can have significant stigma and cause psychological stress. The report highlights first-line treatments, including shampoos, lotions, and other FDA-approved products containing pyrethroids. When it comes to lice screening programs in schools, the AAP says they don't have a real impact on cases and may create more stigma for children suspected of having lice. It's estimated about 6 to 12 million lice infestations occur every year in the U.S. among kids aged 3 to 11. The report says students should not be restricted from attending school because of head lice. And while it's impossible to prevent all cases, it's important to teach kids not to share combs and brushes, as well as hats and pillows. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
The report also says parents should avoid lice products without FDA approval since evidence is lacking on how effective they may be. Well, September has been Sickle Cell Awareness Month. 2 women connected by the gift of life got to meet for the first time. Dick Brennan has their story.
There were hugs and gratitude as Shatira Weaver met Christine Van Benschoten, the woman who donated blood for her life-saving treatment.
I am extremely and inexplicably grateful for you and everyone, and I implore other people to join the ranks and get to donate blood.
According to the CDC, 100,000 Americans live with sickle cell. The disorder affects mostly African Americans. It causes some red blood cells to become deformed into a sickle shape and die. Those cells clog the blood flow and can lead to infections or strokes. Patients like Weaver rely on blood transfusions to stay healthy.
It is what gives me my strength back. It revitalizes me, and then I can get back to my life when that happens. So it really is interesting to see the person meet the person. That's never happened before, so it's a surreal moment.
Van Benschoten says she started donating blood regularly years ago.
It's a chance to show that little old 72-year-old ladies can get out and donate.
The moment the two met was emotional for Carlene Darby, who collected the life-saving donation.
It's just overwhelming and heart-rending.
And Van Benschoten wants everyone to know that donating is easy. Dick Brennan, CBS News, New York.
And sickle cell disease occurs among about 1 out of every 365 Black or African American births. That statistic coming from the CDC. A new treatment is offering hope for Alzheimer's patients after the drug makers released results from a recent clinical trial. In this Health Minute, Mandy Gaither has more on what the data shows and why some believe this is a promising step toward helping those suffering with the disease.
In the U.S., around 6 million people are living with Alzheimer's disease, but a new monoclonal antibody treatment is showing promising results, according to drug makers.
It's been a long time since we've had a development like this potentially in the world of Alzheimer's.
The companies that make the drug say clinical trials show it slowed the rate of cognitive decline by about 27% in those studied. Some of the 1,800 people in the trial got the drug, while others got a placebo. Over 18 months, they were asked questions about memory, orientation, and problem solving.
And while 27% may not sound like a large number, in terms of being able to still be functional, if you have that sort of slowing of cognitive decline, that can be really significant.
In the trial, the treatment seemed to reduce the amount of plaques in the brain of a person with Alzheimer's disease.
It's not entirely clear what the relationship is between clearing plaques and improving cognition, but this drug seemed to do both.
While this treatment is promising, it's still early.
They still gotta, put this through the peer review process. They've applied for accelerated approval from the FDA.
If the treatment is given the green light, it could be available as early as next year. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Now, one of the drug makers, Biogen, is also the company behind another Alzheimer's drug, which was controversially approved by the FDA in June of 2021. Helm was the first new Alzheimer's drug approved in nearly 20 years, but there have been some questions about its efficacy and the cost. All right, there's something fishy going on. We'll show you next on Mid-Morning. The world's glaciers are melting like never before, and a new report shows ice in Switzerland is shrinking at record rates. Experts say climate change is speeding up the destruction. Tina Krause has that story from London.
This may look like just a field of ice and snow, but glaciers are so much more. They provide water for drinking and irrigation for millions. And scientists warn the world's glaciers are quickly disappearing.
It was really shocking and surprising to see how much melting actually can occur, because we've seen many years with strong melting in the last decade.
Experts found glaciers in Switzerland lost 6% of their volume this year alone, shattering the previous record. Scientists blame the destruction on climate change.
We had the very warm summer with continuous heat waves.
And say if greenhouse gas emissions keep rising, 90% of glaciers in the Alps could vanish by the end of the century. A scalding summer across Europe wiped out a glacier in Germany, leaving the country with just 4. Climatologists say the rapid reduction is a global crisis. Researchers estimate Greenland will lose 120 trillion tons of ice over the next 80 years. And in Chile, tourists captured the moment a nearly 700-foot glacier collapsed into a river earlier this month during one of their warmest winters yet. Tina Krause, CBS News.
Now, climate change is causing the world's glaciers to shrink 5 times faster than the 1960s, according to a study in the journal Nature. The Fulton Fish Market, it's a huge part of American culinary history, and it's celebrating its 200th anniversary. It's gone from an open exchange in Lower Manhattan to a giant refrigerated warehouse in the Bronx that takes up 7 football fields. Over the last 2 centuries, the Fulton Fish Market has provided jobs and food for countless American families while providing an abundant supply for artists, photographers, and historians. Jeff Glore has the story.
2 a.m. at the new Fulton Fish Market. As the rest of the world sleeps, this Bronx building becomes a nocturnal city unto itself. 400,000 square feet of the ocean's bounty, moving from anglers who catch food to chefs who prepare it.
So these are local fluke off of Montauk. This is grouper off of Florida. We have black grouper and red grouper.
Joe Guerrera owns the largest wholesaler at the market. He's been doing this for more than 50 years.
These are sea bass caught off of Montauk. This is tilefish caught off of Montauk also.
Wow.
This is what makes the fish market in New York differentiates itself from other cities.
The Fulton Fish Market first opened in 1822, at the time located 5 miles south in Manhattan's Seaport District, a place where people could get all their groceries. When the Brooklyn Bridge allowed most commuters to bypass it, the wholesale fish market became its centerpiece. At its peak, an estimated 2/3 of all the fish served in America came through the Fulton Fish Market, serviced by dedicated workers of all backgrounds and backstories.
For me, photographing the old timers was probably one of the biggest privileges of my life.
Barbara Mensch is a photographer who devoted years of her life to capturing the market and its characters.
I mean, not only were they tough men, and I'm not talking about tough in the sense of intimidating you, which they did a lot. It was the ability to withstand the elements.
The searing heat and bitter cold of an outdoor market were constant obstacles, though eventually not the only ones.
When did organized crime get their hooks in?
So organized crime appears for the first time in the 20s.
Jonathan Reese is the author of The Fulton Fish Market, A History.
Its origins are really obscure. It's not entirely sure how they did it, but how they stayed there is very easy to explain. They controlled the unpacking and packing of fish.
In 1987, the federal government tried to seize control of the Fulton Fish Market to end mafia involvement, an effort led by an ambitious young prosecutor for the Southern District of New York.
Rudy Giuliani made a name for himself.
Yes.
Going after the Fulton Fish Markets.
Yes, yes. And I'm sort of two minds when it comes to that, because he's absolutely right. And he made that case over and over again that the Fulton Fish Market could be cheaper if there was no mob there. But in order to get people to cook the mob out, he argued that the Fulton Fish Market was completely controlled by the mob. And I think that's completely wrong. The Fulton Fish Market didn't run because the mob told it what to do. It just paid off the mob so that it continued to make money itself.
By the early 2000s, a real estate boom was also sweeping New York, and the smells and crowds of the fish market were no longer welcome. So it made the move uptown. Many mourned it as the last holdout of old New York. In its place today, the same building with a dramatically reimagined interior.
These are the original windows.
Yeah, well, those are replicas of the original windows, and the locations of where they were. And behind those windows, each bay had the fishmonger's cashier.
This is the Tin Building now, a tourist destination curated by celebrated chef Jean-Georges, set for its grand opening in September, featuring 6 high-end restaurants and 6 counters and delis.
You can come here prepared meal, or you can come here and have dinner.
You grew up here.
I did. I grew up coming to the seaport in the 80s. I remember it well.
And now you get to recreate it.
What a dream.
Saul Scherl is in charge of tri-state development for the Howard Hughes Corporation.
Where do you want to take this place?
I'd love to see New York come back alive late at night. I'm a late night person. I love to go out, and I found that New York's, asleep earlier than it ever was, especially post-COVID. So where I'd like to take this place, I'd love to see it, busting with people till 2 a.m. in the morning when we close.
The city that never sleeps took a nap.
It did.
No naps allowed overnight back in the Bronx.
Come here.
The largest refrigerated space in North America, where the middle-of-the-night mayhem that has defined the Fulton Fish Market for 200 years is still on full display.
How many did you have?
Yet another generation will soon be moving out, and Joe Guerrera says his son Anthony is ready to take over.
That's the last of them. We actually got out of them. We did pretty good.
What possessed you to want to
get up in the middle of the night and work all night like your dad?
So I remember when I was a kid and he used to take me to work, and the alarm used to go off at like 1 o'clock. He used to hop out of bed. When we would get down to the old fish market, it was just the buzzing, the yelling, the screaming, the freshness of the product. It was just a hustle and bustle that is just one of a kind. You know, you really don't see it. And it's something that I really fell in love with, you know?
Outrageous hours notwithstanding, it's hard not to fall in love, especially when they insist you don't leave without dinner.
Look at that beautiful thing. That's a tuna.
That's a bluefin tuna.
Whoa, yummy.
You're gonna have that tonight.
Coming up, music that helped shape a generation, remembering Coolio, ahead on Mid-Morning. Welcome back. Former CBS News correspondent Bill Plant has died at the age of 84. Nora O'Donnell has a look back at his incredible career.
Bill Plant spent more than half a century at CBS News covering history. At age 26, he was sent to cover the war in Vietnam.
The first actual ground combat troops to enter the country.
Another big assignment, the Civil Rights Movement. He interviewed Martin Luther King Jr. as he marched from Selma to Montgomery.
Have all the activities of the past weeks in Selma come to fruition now?
And then political conventions and presidents. Bill spent 35 years as our White House correspondent.
Did you make a mistake in sending arms to Tehran, sir?
No, and I'm not taking any more questions.
Bill Plant? No, Bill's not here. That's shocking.
This is the CBS Sunday Night News. Bill Plant reporting.
Years in the anchor chair and traveling the world for CBS News.
100 years ago, the Portage Glacier came all the way here.
This is Bill Plant, CBS News, proving you're never too old to do something stupid.
Bill loved biking, running, and wine. He also loved his family. The father of 6 children, he is survived by his loving wife, Robin. Nora O'Donnell, CBS News, Washington.
The music world is remembering Grammy award-winning rapper Coolio. The musician rose to fame in the 1990s and sold more than 17 million records during his career. Coolio's longtime manager announced the 59-year-old died in Los Angeles this week at a friend's home. The cause of death was not immediately clear. Vladimir Duthier takes a look back at Coolio's long career.
Compton, California was no stranger to producing rap royalty in the 1990s, and Coolio was no exception, most notably with his smash hit, Gangsta's Paradise.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left.
The song shot to the top of the charts and was Billboard's #1 single in 1995, even eclipsing in popularity the film Dangerous Minds starring Michelle Pfeiffer, which featured the track. Coolio, whose real name was Artis Levon Ivy Jr., went on to win a Grammy in 1996 for Best Rap Performance for the song.
An award is not really the pinnacle of what your achievements are because you get an award. An award just lets you know that you worked hard, at least for that time, for that particular period of time.
Along with hits like Fantastic Voyage, the first track off his 1994 debut album, and See You When You Get There.
I see you when you get there.
Coolio went on to release 9 albums, selling more than 17 million records. But it was a long, hard struggle to the top of the music mountain.
For 15 years, I didn't make a dime.
After word of his death, hip-hop legends took to social media to pay respects. MC Hammer wrote, "One of the nicest dudes I've known." Rapper Ice Cube tweeted, "I witnessed firsthand this man's grind to the top of the industry. Rest in peace."
Vladimir Duthier, CBS News.
When we come back, 2 is better than 1 on tonight's Prices Right. We'll show you just ahead on Mid-Morning. Welcome back. Tonight, young Sheldon actors Ian Armitage and Reagan Revord will guest model in front of an audience of real twins of a special episode of The Price is Right. The on-screen twins will help give away double the amazing prizes, all inspired by television's #1 comedy, Young Sheldon. Check out this behind-the-scenes preview.
Ian and Reagan, come on down! You're the next contestants on The Price is Right!
We're filming The Price is Right, and it is so incredible. We're having the best time ever, right, Ray?
Yeah, it's so much fun. I love it.
When Ian and Reagan are going to be on the show, there's something very special about the audience. I don't want to give it away. Let's just say it's double trouble.
Yeah, I'm not seeing things.
The audience has actually been filled with twins today.
The Price is Right is always amazing, and with all these twins in the audience, it's not going to be double trouble, it's going to be double fun.
I found out secret knowledge about the two actors. Reagan's the really smart one.
You're not a genius?
I say words. She actually writes books.
Well, you're both geniuses to me.
I mean, being on this set has been so incredible. I mean, we're on the set of like a show that our parents watched when they were kids.
Yeah.
It's so crazy that this has been running for 51 years now. I am just so honored to be here.
It's been so cool seeing how it all works, seeing how much fun everyone is having.
You could just tell that they were having a blast. Totally professional, nailed their lines. It's like, fine, make it look easy. It's scary. How much more professional they are than I am.
All right, don't miss The Price is Right at Night primetime special featuring prizes inspired by Young Sheldon. That is tonight at 7 here on WCBI. And we'll be right back to wrap things up. Stay with us. All right, stay connected with us. We always love to hear from you. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great day.